Right, today I'm working on a video to repair one of these connectors with a loose solder connection right on here, right there. Presently it's working, but it's on its last legs. It's literally hanging on by a thread, and so I'm just gonna remove the old solder here, cut that back a little bit, and then reattach it. This is a connector that my wife uses at her work. She works at a vet clinic as a vet technician, and they use this to clip these onto the animals, and then it passes signal through the wires through this connector into a machine, and then that machine will give them readings like heart rates and their pulse and good useful pieces of information like that. Now I ran into, I've already had a look at it here, and all these two other connectors are just fine, but the one that's troublesome is this one right here, the red connector. And the question I had when I first looked at it was, there's only one connection point on here. It's the one terminal. However, this is a two-conductor wire. It has, or I should say, a single conductor with a ground. It has a ground shield on the outside of the wire, and then an inner core, of course, that would normally pass a signal. But there's only one point here, and it looks like they were just kind of attached together. So my thoughts were that either the ground is not connected, or the core is not connected, or they're connected together. And the only way I could think of for checking that, of course, is by using something like a continuity test on a multimeter. So I've got my multimeter right here, and the continuity test is usually something like a circle with some lines beside it. So if I put this on the continuity test and hit function, because that's a secondary function here, and then tap these together, you can hear that beeping. So what I have to do is I'm going to connect one of these. Usually I would do it like here, under there, because there's only one place to clip it on there anyhow. And then I need to probe this one inside of these holes, and then that would tell me if I'm able to probe two holes and get a continuity, then that means that both of the wires are wired together and they are appearing on two holes. Or alternatively, what I can do is I can oh, you know what, no, I think I just thought of a better way to do this. I think I thought of a better way. I think what I'll do, what I was going to do was connect this on here and then probe these holes. But I think what I'll do is I'll just cut the end of that off, and then I'll get my other probe here. Let me remove that. So I have an alligator clip on one of these, and I have that style right here, the pen style one, and I'll explain in a moment why I have these two different styles here for this application. Okay, so first things first, I need to get those stuff falling off of there. Get some wire cutters. Cut that off there. Okay, now it's probably kind of hard to see, so let's open this up a little bit. Doesn't really matter how much I'm cutting off here, because I'm just exposing the wires so that I can run some tests. I just want to know how to solder this. Do I solder the wires together, or ignore one of them, or what? because there's only one place to solder them onto the connector anyways, but I want to know whether I do the ground or do the internal connector. Probably the internal one, I imagine. Okay, so I've got my wires exposed here. I'll get my helping hands to hang on to that for me. Okay. Oh, you know what? No, I don't think I need this one at all. I think I need 2 alligator clips. Here's why. Okay, first I'll connect this one on here. Test them, they are working. And then I've got this, the only trouble here is, at first I had that other probe, and I was just going to stick it in these holes here, but it doesn't fit, it's too big. So I'll use this alligator connector here. I'll clip that onto this wire. This is about, I think it's a 24 or maybe a 26 gauge piece of solid copper wire. And I can stick this inside these holes, and I can find out where that connection is. So these are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So here, let's probe these holes and see which one carries that ground. Oh, number 3. Okay, let me just go wire. Write that down. Ouch. So I'll just write that here. Red ground is 3. Okay. Now, you know what, while we're at it, let's just probe the other holes and see if it shows up anywhere else. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, it doesn't show up anywhere else. Okay, so now let's connect this to the conductor wire, the inner core, and now let's probe the holes. So remember, number 3 was the ground. Number 1, 2, 3. Ah, so it looks like even though they're not connected here, they're just both wired together there anyhow. So that makes my job easy. First we'll check these other holes. Nope, it only shows up on pin number 3. So now I'm finished with this. I don't need my multimeter, so I'll move that out of the way. Disconnect that. And we can just move our helping hands out of the way for a moment. Remove the paper. Okay, so now all I need to do is, first I'll clean up this connector right here. I believe that's soldered. That's soldered in there. Okay, let's turn on my soldering iron. There's my soldering iron that I'm using. It's a Heiko. It gets hot really, really fast. That's why I like it. So I'm just going to try and melt it here. There we go. Already got that pulled out. Move that, throw that away. And there's some sort of substance in there. We'll remove that, throw that out. Ouch! Ooh, that got hot really fast. Okay. There's a little bit of solder in there. That beeping sound is my soldering iron once it gets hot. When I put it in the cradle, it lowers the heat for safety reasons. and then as soon as I remove it from the cradle, it heats itself back up and then beeps to let me know it's ready. Okay, so I just need to get some solder out. I'm going to add a little bit more solder onto this connector. And I just ran out of my other solder, so I'm going to start some new stuff here. And this type of solder I'm using currently is, I've never actually tried this before, but this is lead-free solder, and I usually just go for the stuff that does have lead in it because it works so well. But yeah, we'll give this a try and see what it's like. I'm sure it can't be too bad. All right, so let's get the helping hands here. Put that out of the way. And we're just gonna hold that in there. Add some solder in here. Remember to get add a little bit of solder to the end of your tip, just so that it'll conduct heat to the surface you're soldering to. But you always put the solder on the part that you're soldering, not on the tip of the iron, because the solder won't stick to anything unless the metal parts themselves are very, very hot. Okay, so I've got lots of solder in there now. Now I'm going to I already trimmed that back, but since these are just connected anyhow, I'm going to remove a little bit more of this inner plastic sleeve very carefully with my knife. You know, I have a pair of, what do you call them, crimpers, but I actually just prefer to use one of these knives. After all this time, I've got a pretty good feel for it. Okay, so there we go. Now I don't really need that much wire, so I think I'll cut a little bit of the end off of that. But first, I'm going to pre-solder it. Wet the end of my iron. Wait for it to finish heating up. Oh, it's beeped, it's ready. Now just wait a second. There we go. And at your workbench, it's a good idea to have a fan to absorb the fumes. If you don't have a fan, then there's a technique that I've heard of other people using, and that's what I use myself. And I just exhale while I'm soldering. And I always keep the window open as well. And the idea is that the fumes won't build up. However, unless you're soldering long periods of time, every day, yeah, I don't think you'd have to worry about the fumes too much. And, okay, so that looks like it's all good to go there now. So I'm just going to inspect this part and make sure that there's enough solder. I think I'm going to put a little extra solder in there, because I don't think that the solder goes deep enough into the part. So I might just zoom up for this part of the video. Let's see here. And let's focus the camera here. Okay. Okay. So let's add a little, oh, there's my solder. Let's add a little bit more on here. Okay. I think that's probably just fine. And now I'm just gonna, actually I might as well use the hands for this. So I can hold it like that. Now I'm gonna use the hands to position that in there. Now I can just use my iron to melt everything. Part of the reason I like lead-based solder is it, ouch! Ooh. That's why you want to use one of these and get that to hold it for you. Part of the reason I like lead solder is it, has a lower melting temperature. I think I got hooked on working on with that before I got this Heiko. It goes up to 750 degrees, so there's not too much worry about it getting hot enough anymore. So I probably could just use this lead-based solder all the time. Okay, so not sure if that's in focus or not. There we go. It's a pretty good solder. Shiny. Feels solid. So now I think that's a job done. So we'll just put the jacket back on here. There we go. That's all nice and secure. So now let's just zoom out again. And I'm just going to focus that again. Okay, so now, because I always like to test my work, let's put that clip on there. Let's put this on the continuity test again. And remember, pin 3 had both the connections, so pin 3 should test positively. There we go. And we'll test the other pins just to make sure. Okay, I think that's all ready to go. Thanks for checking out my video. We'll see you next time.